Well, Somerset was the smallest coalfield in Britain. It didn't produce a lot of coal. It was one of, if not the smallest coalfield. It had difficult geology. As most of the coal mines have been badly starved of capital investment, certainly through the war years and prior to the war years, because the market for coal was somewhat diminished. Your Somerset coalfield was somewhat backward compared with the rest of the UK. Coal cutters undercut the coal a lot more quickly and easily than a miner lying on his side to undercut the coal. Undercutting the coal from 3 foot to 4 foot 6, maybe 5 feet in certain cases, depending on the nature of the geology. As they then wanted to get more coal out and conveyors became available, they went to the long wall system. The long wall system meant that you could open up an area of coal where you could either put trams on the face and fill directly into trams, or you could put a conveyor. A coal face might be, say, 100 yards long, and it would move forward in intervals of 2 foot or 3 foot at any one time, with props being set behind after you've got the coal out, and the coal could then be filled onto a conveyor which would take it along to a roadway at one end of the face, and could either there be filled into tubs or filled onto a conveyor to take it out of the mine.
We really probably felt a little bit in two minds about adopting machinery. It brought its own problems, of course. Work was somewhat easier, but it brought some problems, and not the least with dust. The machines would cut the coal, and that would create clouds of dust. I mean, I remember on a night shift cutting coal, taking my vest off and wrapping it around my face and mouth to keep the dust out of my mouth and out of my lungs, really.
Now, if you take the coal out, you've got to put something to replace it. Otherwise, the strata, because it is under pressure, so there will be a tendency for the floor to come up and the roof to come down to fill the space where the coal has been removed. So in your normal working, you will be setting props, certainly up until the 1930s, 1940s, they were nearly all wood. From the 1940s on, steel props were being set, and certainly from the 1950s on, we had hydraulic doughty props were being used on coal faces. So that as you went through the coal face, you were supporting the whole area where you'd taken the coal out on props and bars. But after a while, after you've gone forward a certain distance, you would be extracting the props and bars behind you and allowing the roof to cave, which would then take the pressure off the coal face where you were working, because the weight would be thrown into the gob, into the waste behind the working face.
When the weights come, you see, you can see the dust falling from the roof, you see, stones, you see, powder. But it's cracking, so you see, cracking there, you see. And they crack like thunder, you see. When they come down, all these people want to have a breath, they will throw it in the old workers, you see. Everything come to the coal. That push that air, you see. That was come down a little bit.
One morning about 10 o'clock they said that the face was on weight. That's the roof, was on weight. We had to all get out of inside the coal face. We went out to have our bread. was, you know, bread time. When we went back in, the coal faces were that high. When we went back in, it was about that high. We had to crawl inside there. Oh, that was terrible.
Of course, down in underground in them days, were carbine lamps, and you could carry water bottles, glass water bottles. You could wear any old shoes or any old clothes. But of course, then they altered it. They brought in the lamps, and which was a lot better, and the hard hats and everything.
I remember going to see the pithead baths, because that was quite a day. They were all very modest, I think, at first. They used to wear a lot of shorts, the men, but after a while they got used to being naked, you know, and having a shower, because I don't suppose any of them had had a shower before, being used to the tub in front of the fire. And that, having the pithead baths were a godsend, both to him and to Mum and to all other wives who had to deal with that.
The pithead baths made a big difference, not only to the cleanliness of the miner, but the cleanliness of his house as well. I mean, you're not carrying the coal dust every day like you were, because you change your clothes and go home in decent clothes. So, I mean, it made a big difference in the household. The woman never had mining clothes, because what would happen, you'd perhaps not wash your mining clothes, you wear them out, and then chuck them away, or take on something new for the wear on the ground.
You were always cleaning, yeah, always. Yes, I mean you could do your windowsills, 3 or 4 times a day for the soots, especially if you had your window open, yeah, or your door, yeah.
You felt more secure in your job. You knew that the government, you know, and the unions were one. The wages were increased. And insistence on safety. Smoking was stopped.
Oh, I mean, if you were caught smoking underground, or if you were caught with cigarettes underground, it would be instant dismissal. You'd have the sack immediately. I mean, there's no two ways about it, but there were some that couldn't give up or couldn't wait to come back up for a smoke. So everybody had to be more or less searched before they left the pit top to come underground, make sure they had no matches, no means of igniting the cigarette or lighter or anything like that, and no tobacco.
With this thing, this is a bread tin, what they carried their sandwiches in. I even found sandwiches with cigarettes inside them, in the tin.
You take a thermos of coffee, and you use a French letter and put some cigarettes and a match or two in the French letter and drop it down in your coffee. It was possible to get a cigarette underground if you wanted them.
Well, in a typical mine, you probably have 200 to 300 people working, no more than that. And the majority of your workforce would be underground, so that you would have men at the pit top on the shaft, men at the pit bottom on the shaft, and then you would have a transportation system which would take you into where your coal was being gotten, and that's where your colliers were, which would be then producing the coal. As a rough guess, I would think that probably of your total workforce, that if you had 300 men and boys, you would probably have 100 on the surface, 100 on the transport system underground, and 100 at the coal face.
At each colliery you had the colliery manager, who was in charge of all. He was responsible for everything. Well, then you had the under manager, which was his job was underground basically, and under him there was his overman, You would probably have an overman on the mornings and one in the afternoons. And then there would be the deputies. The deputies would be responsible for each district. Some would only be responsible for the pit bottom. Others would be for the face or certain roadways. With the engineering side, of course there's the manager, and then there'd be the engineer who would be in charge of the winders and responsible for the compressors and also the workers on the surface. Well, then there'd be the electrical engineer who would be in charge of the electrical part of it. And of course the mechanical engineer would have fitters on the surface and fitters underground. Pipe fitters, which would put extra extension pipes on as the face moved in, because they use water and also compressed air. Same applied with electricians. As the face moved forward, extra cables had to be put in to extend the electrical supply in every, to keep up to the face, yes.
There was a surveying department and the financial department and the area general managers, which was sort of over everything. I think there was a stores department there. I think that was about the lot.
And when I went to the coal board, I just found this lovely, adult, relaxed atmosphere. There were 3 of us girls working in purchasing and stores, and probably about 7 men, plus the hierarchy. And it was just a really, really nice, happy, relaxed atmosphere.
It was a lovely place to work, actually. But they provided a canteen and all that sort of thing. Yeah, we were quite well looked after, and we were paid very well in those days compared to some other industries around.
I got the coal off. I was called a collier. Dad was a flitter. What he did when we finished our shift, all the coal was gone, all the conveyor belts. Dad would come in and shift the conveyor belts over a line, so that we would be able to throw it onto the conveyor belt when we moved to get the next lot of coal. The whole face was about 180 yards long, and the cutters then would follow the flitters in. That they would cut all the way down through the face, ready for us to follow through on the following shift again. So it was the coal getters, the flitters, and then the cutters.
He was on call all the time. Yes, his time was from 6 till 2. But he would go at 6 o'clock, and you may not see him until midnight. Yeah, and sometimes he'd come home and he'd be just having his meal, 2 o'clock, and he'd already had his bath, which was over the pit then, and he'd have a call. Someone would come across at the back of the bottom of the garden, because there was a path there then, and would you be able to do so and so? So back he had to go underground. Yeah, you never knew what time you were going to see him. Yeah, which used to annoy me a little bit because we didn't seem to have very much time together.
So did you worry much about him when he was working?
Oh yes, well, especially when he didn't come home on time, because there were accidents happened down there. I didn't know very much about them because he would never tell me anything about it. But yes, I did. Yeah.
Yes, his back was covered in marks, black marks. Yes, and he had one there where the coal exploded down the pit, and he had this helmet on, and I suppose that spot saved it, you know. It would have been worse, but he did have a mark right down across there.
Have you heard of beat knee? They spend a lot of time on their knees, and your kneecap has got a little potentially fluid-filled sac to cushion it if you're kneeling. And if you kneel a lot and traumatize the prepatellar bursa, which is the sac, it swells up and it can get infected. It can become an abscess. But it was a very common thing. The miners were getting beat knee. And of course they got scars, coal dust scars on their arms and on their body. And certainly, you know, chest complaints.
I wouldn't go work on the pit if I were younger now myself, no. Because the money never were enough for what the miner were doing.
Yeah. The worst
It's,
thing...
it's no hair. You sweat like hell.
That's right.
So dangerous. You crawl through a little bag with
Dusty.
a battery underneath in there.
You take a can of water down there, they won't last you very long.
No, very long, no.
No, you don't, because once you finish that, you got it.
Yeah, it's terrible.
We were issued with knee pads if we needed them, but majority of the time then, you know, we were led down doing our work on the coal face, this is. So we just got hardened to the situation. We only wore a pair of trousers, so we'd be led on the hard floor with the gravel or coal dust on there. Our skin would get sore, so we just urinated on our hands or weed on our hands and rubbed it in our bodies to harden the skin up and heal the wounds.
Broncho problems, you know, and very often ear problems as well, but mainly chest. Of course, they did get problems with their arms and legs through the use that they had to make of them in the pits, you know. And there again, a lot of people had problems with their eyes and the nose, only really through dust in confined spaces.
Your ears were one of the biggest problems because there was no such thing as earmuffs, or you stuff cotton wool in your ear if you could find some. You were partially deaf most of the time. The other things, it jarred your hands and fingers. That's why so many miners are claiming for a white finger. Well, you see, a boring machine rattled round and round. It virtually went round and round inside the barrel, as well as driving forward. And the whole thing just shook.
Yeah. Not, I'll tell you, unless you've experienced it. See, it isn't just something you do just now and then. You're down there every day, and sometimes Saturdays and Sundays as well. And you know, how do you account for that? How do you quantify it? And
oh yeah. We lived with pain down there. We were you'd have pain every day, as in on the face where the height of the coal was only 14 to 20 inches. When you're digging the coal out, your knuckles would be forever going up into the roof and smashing. I got busted fingers that when you're throwing the stone, you forget to leave go it fast enough and it smashes into the roof.